Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter, blessed to be joined by my dear friend Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President, Editorial Director of EWTN News, and very frankly, one of the most brilliant men I've ever met. He humbles me and he compels me to more, and today is no different. Matthew, my friend, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Oh, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th.
Thank you for the compliment, undeserved as it is.
No, very well deserved. And happy 4th, happy 250th. Oh, what a blessing to live in this glorious nation.
Yes, exactly. I just wish more people realize that.
Yeah, we need
That's another conversation, I know.
I know. I was going to, you know what? Maybe let's begin on that very briefly, that as we approach the 250th, Matthew, we as Catholics have had a role to play in this republic and continue to have that role by virtue of our baptism.
Yeah, we do. And one of the points that we always have to make is that Christopher Columbus arrives in 1492, much maligned as he has been now in certain corners of contemporary culture. The Catholic faith has been present in the life of the New World ever since, and we have played an astonishing role in the development of North America and, of course, of the whole of the Americas, but also a really important role in the development, the birth, the flourishing, and the legacy and great history of the United States of America. And that is something that's worth celebrating. So here we are in this semi-quincentennial year, celebrating the 250th since the Declaration of Independence, and we can talk more about that in a minute. But it's really important to note the contributions of famous Catholics, beloved Catholics, but also nameless, unknown, anonymous Catholics who came here looking for a better future, and they found it. And that is one of the most unique and important things about America.
Can we also just very briefly highlight how so much of Catholic intellectual, political, and social teaching history fed into how our founders and framers thought about this nation?
Well, that's right. I mean, we can go back to even the ideas of independence and the role that some of the thought of someone like Robert Bellarmine and others had, but also the basic truths and reality of natural law. When you read the Declaration of Independence, made our Creator, it has several references to the Creator. And from where do our rights come? They are, as they say, unalienable. And they come not because they're granted by the state. Someone did not craft these as some principle of governance. Why? Because those can be taken away. That which is given by the state can be taken back by the state. No, these rights are fundamental. They are unalienable. Why? Because they are given to us by our Creator and cannot be taken away by the state, and therefore have to be cherished, defended, and in every sense enshrined into our public life. And I think it is the loss of an understanding of what that means by way of our unalienable rights, but also the role of the Creator in that process, I think, is one of the reasons why we are facing so many of the social challenges that we are today.
I would love to continue that conversation, but clearly we don't have a lot of news things to talk about this week.
Indeed.
I apologize. It's not a joking match. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Just heartbreaking.
But one other quick point
yes,
too, is that the importance of the fact that these truths are self-evident.
Yes.
That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the idea that they're self-evident because they are.
Well, you know what? That is putting it as brilliantly and succinctly as possible. Thank you for that, Matthew. Now, pursuant to self-evident truths, Episcopal ordinations and consecrations by necessity demand communion with visible unity in the chair of Peter. And I say that in direct reference to the illicit, quote-unquote, consecrations of the SSPX, quote-unquote, bishops yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think as we have seen in the last 24 hours, some very swift developments of things. But this has really been coming since February, when the Society of St. Pius X made the announcement that they were going to consecrate 4 bishops for the society, for the priestly fraternity of St. Pius X. the SSPX, for those who may, in fact, there's some people who only know it by that term. So what we saw yesterday comes as a culmination of a refusal to adhere to the request, to the pleas of the Holy Father. And that's an important point to make, because when we're talking about the church, and you can go to Catechism, Canon, and Canon, the Code of Canon Law, Canon 751. It defines in that one canon, you can find it readily online, certain realities. It talks about heresy, it talks about apostasy, and it talks about schism. Heresy is the obstinate denial or obstinate doubt of some truth which is to be believed by divine and Catholic faith. Apostasy is a total repudiation of the Christian faith. Schism, which is listed among those and therefore is extremely serious, is the refusal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff or of communion with the members of the Church subject to him. So then the question is, how do we define the idea of schism? And I think yesterday, in many ways, we had a textbook definition of what schism is. And I've used this phrase now a few times. This is absolutely heartbreaking that we have this rupturing of unity in the life of the Church.
I echo that completely. I did a commentary yesterday just trying to speak peace into the hearts of undoubtedly so many Catholics across the world who are in different spectrums of outrage, scandal, confusion, disappointment, and some directed against Leo's magisterium. So, Matthew, I wonder if we could once again speak into just how much the Leonine magisterium did to try to foster unity.
Well, that's right. We have seen since February, and even up to just the day before yesterday, the Holy Father pleading with the SSPX to halt these consecrations. And that in his letter to the SSPX, he said that I plead with you and ask you with all my heart, please turn back. But he also used a very powerful image. I pray for you because to tear the seamless garment of Christ is a sin of extreme gravity. Now, he has tried, as his predecessors have, to reach out to find these accommodations. So we can go all the way back to the days in which there was an agreement that they were trying to reach with the late Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre that would bring them back fully into communion with the Church. That goes all the way back to 1988. They rejected the proposal that was put in front of them. And they went ahead in 1988 with the consecrations of 4 bishops that led to the proclamation of schism, automatic excommunication. Let's remind everyone that it is automatic. It isn't something that is arbitrarily imposed on you. You do it to yourself, and to put it that way. Mm-hmm. It's called late sententiae. It is by the deed being done. You have exercised, you have excommunicated yourself. In his great patience and generosity, Benedict XVI lifted those decrees of excommunication in 2009 in an effort to bring the traditional Latin Mass to a much broader part of the world, but then also to invite the Society of St. Pius X back into communion in some form. So it has had for a long time what is simply referred to as an irregular canonical status. Now with this, we are back all the way to 38 years ago. And Pope Leo, picking up on these efforts of John Paul II, of Benedict XVI, of Pope Francis, who granted them permission to hear confessions, to witness at weddings, all great generous gestures, and every step of the way the Society has rejected what has been asked and has rejected what has been offered. And Pope Leo XIV has tried to have dialogue. He made certain that there was a meeting with the prefect of the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith, Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, and sure, he's been subject to controversy, but he is representing the Pope in this.
I'm talking with Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director of EWTN News. Matthew is speaking tremendous sanity and truth into this very heartbreaking situation about the illicit consecrations of bishops by the SSPX that took place on July the 1st. We're continuing on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm blessed to be talking with my dear friend Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President, Editorial Director of EWTN News. Matthew, we were cut off by the break, but you were just highlighting again that, and not to put too fine a point on this, but it's so important we understand the Vatican and Leo's magisterium didn't sit around and declare excommunication to the SSPX. This is incurred by virtue of the act. The declaration is announcing, because you've done this, you've incurred this upon yourself.
Well, that's right. And again, that phrase is late sententiae. Now, the idea, too, of by these acts, they have entered into schism. Now, we were talking before the break about the very fine language in the Code of Canon Law. Refusal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff. It's right there. He has asked them not to do this. They have done it. They are in schism. Now, what are the consequences of that? And the consequences were issued today when the Holy See, again, the Dicastery of the Doctrine of Faith, issued a very clear decree specifying a couple of things. The first is that by these actions, the consecrating bishops, as well as the 4 bishops who are consecrated, have incurred automatic excommunication, and these can only be removed by the Pope. It then also noted that Catholic clergy and lay faithful are asked not to adhere to the SSPX's schism under penalty also of automatic excommunication, and that there was what appreciated, too, in the explanatory note that went along with this, that there is a very clear statement of sadness, that there is a lament, that the doctrinal discussions that have been going on with the SSPX since the time of Pope St. Paul VI, because let's remember the SSPX was established basically in 1970, have all failed in trying to establish the idea of full communion with the Holy See. And it is important for Catholics to be aware, too, that the SSPX clergy who administer the sacraments illicitly, because they are, that the sacrament of penance and marriage assisted by them are invalid. The other ones are valid, but at the same time, we are asked not to participate in these liturgies. But at the same time, of course, we have to understand what is meant by adhere for those who are active in the SSPX and adhere to the schism. That's one thing. For those who may attend a traditional Latin Mass that's celebrated by the SSPX on rare occasions, that sort of thing. So you're not subject to excommunication. So there's going to be some clarity about that. Certainly on the part of the Holy See in helping people to understand what is and what isn't subject to excommunication on the part of the average Catholic.
The other thing we have working against them is their own track record of recent statements, even if we don't go too far into the history, Matthew. So somewhere in June, they made a declaration of faith. Mm-hmm. They called it their profession of Catholic faith in an open letter to Pope Leo XIV. I read the thing. This was an obstinate digging in of drawing their line in the sand, digging in their heels, and then Leo reached out again and again. Then they had another letter from the Superior General, and then even just before the quote unquote consecrations, they had another declaration of the Catholic faith, all of which stood in abject defiance against the Leonine Magisterium and the Second Vatican Council and a series of other things. They left very little room to work with.
Well, that's right. And it's very clear that they were obstinate and they were determined to do this. So I don't think there was anything short of recognizing these consecrations that the Pope could have done. And recognizing those consecrations would have been a recognition of all the other problems that attend the Society of St. Pius X's positions. And what I mean by that is that there's a really important point that has to be made. And I think Cardinal Gerhard Mueller, who has really emerged out of this situation, impressively, to my mind, in speaking out against the SSPX. And it matters because on two fronts, he was, at one point, the prefect for the then Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. So he is a brilliant theologian. And he is not what I think anyone would term a wide-eyed liberal cardinal.
Yeah.
So he is himself considered one of the most determined conservative voices in the church today. He has come out firmly against these consecrations. But he made a really important point, and that is that there is this idea that all of this is predicated on the love of the traditional Latin Mass, and that you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
That it's all about the traditional Latin Mass. This is all about, as he makes the point, authority.
Yeah.
And that the idea of, as he says, that there are two absolutely different questions, the devotion to traditional liturgy and the rejection of papal authority. And we have to keep focused on that because there's another dimension here related to authority. First, they have defied the authority of the Holy Father. Mm-hmm. And Pope Leo XIV is the Holy Father. He is the Pope. But the other is that it is in so many ways that we see a refusal, a rejection of the authority of the Second Vatican Council, which is an ecumenical council, the 21st in the life of the Church, and that stands in firm continuity with all the other ecumenical councils. So it's authority, a rejection of authority on two different fronts. Yeah. And yes, you can have questions about some of the aspects of interreligious dialogue and other things, but that rejection of authority leads ultimately to the rejection of everything.
As one whose family and I attend a Latin Mass every week, it's become a home for our family. I'll be the first to say that if that particular expression of spirituality leads to a repudiation of papal authority and his valid magisterium, then we are doing something wrong. So, no, yeah, and I know you and I can go on and on, but let's end on a very joyous note. 5 Heroes of American Catholicism. Beautiful article.
Yes.
Thank you so much for writing this.
Yeah, so it was a privilege to be able to reflect on 5 great figures in the history of, as you say, the American Catholic Church. Here we are on the 250th of the Declaration of Independence. And what I wanted to do was to look at 5 figures in American Catholic history who all made massive contributions to the life of the Church. And we started this conversation by talking about those anonymous Catholics who helped shape the country. Well, these are 5 figures who are far from anonymous. We can start with the Carrolls. Charles Carroll of Carrollton, who was the only Catholic signer of the Declaration of Independence and the last one to die, which itself is a remarkable feat. His great magnificent cousin, John Carroll, who was the first bishop and then first archbishop of Baltimore. We have Junipero Serra, who established so much of the church in California, the Apostle of California, who gave his life for the Native Americans there. We also have Mother Cabrini, who's the patron saint of immigrants, and you have to include him, Fulton J. Sheen. Now, we call them, all these others were saints. He's about to be beatified in just a couple of months. These 5 figures in their own way represent the greatness of American Catholicism, but also the beauty of American history in the way that they shaped the lives of so many people who live here.
Once again, another attestation of the fact that Catholics have been a strong catalyst in the continued growth in virtue in this nation. We're running out of time, Matthew, but just an exhortation to celebration, but also sanctifying the Republic.
Yeah, we just completed the consecration of the nation to the Sacred Heart, a beautiful way to mark this 250th year, that we should consecrate everything we do to the Sacred Heart, to our Lord. But that also then calls us to be 2 things. The first is to be faithful Catholics. The other is also to remember that we are called to be good citizens. They're not incompatible. And we have a reason to evangelize culture, to proclaim Christ in culture, to be good Catholic Americans.
Oh, praise the Lord for you, Dr. Matthew Bunson. Thank you so much. My guest has been Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director of EWTN News. Sager words couldn't be said on this, our new favorite buzzword, semi-quincentennial celebration of America. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.